Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see you. Great to be with friends and all the friendly faces. We are looking forward to Pentecost when you come up and we all get together again. Don't let Charles fool you. He gave away his real motivation. If you listen closely enough, you can find out what a man or woman's really like. He wanted you to come up for the 2 o'clock potluck. He didn't come today to hear me. He came for your potluck after church. Don't. Out of the mouth of man, you can see the heart. It's right there. So, and it's really great to be here. I want to say, Jeff Reed, I think he said he was going to listen in. He's pretty sneaky, that guy. He's pretty sneaky. He's been trying to get me to speak here for a long time, and I just try to work it in my schedule. I love coming here, but it's sometimes hard to work it into my schedule. So here's what he said. He said, well, our speaker's going to be out of town, and we really need somebody. The whole world will fall apart if you don't come. And it worked. It worked. I said, okay, I'll come. And so it is true a lot of your speakers are scattered, but I guess Charles in retirement and others weren't ready today, but I'm happy to be here. First of all, too, Charles helped me out about 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember. We had a guest speaker scheduled. I think I was out of town. We had a guest speaker scheduled. At the last minute, the guest speaker could not come. So I called up Charles and said, could you come in since they're waiting to have someone special? And he came down. So I would help a lot of people, but I especially like to help my friends, and you are my friends. So it's nice to come down here and help you all out. It was a little difficult this week. It's been a tough week. My traveling's been down a little bit. Some of it could be age related, but some of it could be I had bypass surgery 2 years ago, so I don't have the same energy I used to have. But 6 months ago, we took in my wife's parents from West Texas. Now, they don't live in our house, but they live in a house close by. And so as they live there, we give them care. We give them care. We brought them over for two reasons. We want to give them the best care possible, and we're also looking to protect assets. We don't want the government to just take all the assets, so we've gone to the different senior lawyers and been able to get all assets put into a family trust. We've done all that work. But we've been busy. We've been really busy taking care of her parents. And this Monday, she went out to West Texas to do some business dealings, to do some things about their house and their estate and other things. So I've had them myself. We have some people helping, but I've had the main care myself this week. So I am worn out. I am really worn out. But Sabbath day is nice. In fact, coming up to speak to you is not stressful to me. To talk to some of my friends. Oh yes, we know in the Bible it says you have to be careful what you say when you represent God or speak on behalf of God because you have a higher accountability. I get that. But if you remember that and don't think of yourself as something special, I love speaking. People ask about my job. They say, what's hard about your job? My cardiologist says don't have stress. Well, my job has a little bit of stress, but the stress is dealing with broken people. That's my stress. Going into someone's home and they talk about their situation, a horrible situation, and trying to help them through that is very tough. So that's the stress. Some people, and a lot of people don't understand this. If you get nervous speaking, you say, doesn't speaking make you nervous? Actually, again, if you just try to serve and edify and help, there's nothing better than to come before my friends today and just share some thoughts about the Word of God. So in other words, if I'm trying to help you today, there's nothing stressful about that. Just the stressful part is, I said, dealing with all the brokenness. Some of you are mechanics and deal with broken cars. Some of you work in air conditioning and deal with broken machinery. Some of us deal with broken people, and that's the hardest part. But today I want to share some thoughts, so I decided, what would I speak about today? By the way, David Kern must think I'm going on for a long time because did you hear him say the comment, stand up now because you're going to be sitting for a long time. So just for that, I'm going to speak for 3 hours. No, I have a handout today. If you see the handout's a short handout today. Although even the long handouts, I don't cover everything on the handout. The reason I have a handout is just to give you something if you'd like to have it. But I want to analyze what could I talk about today with my friends. And the title of the sermon is, Who Are You? Who are you? The purpose of this sermon is to encourage you to analyze who you are. You know, it's real easy to analyze other people. There's nothing hard about that. I mean, sometimes it is hard to analyze people correctly if you're trying to help them. You know, they have a book like The 5 Love Languages. I think it's good to read books about how to understand people, how do we understand ourselves. And if we want to help other people, it's best to try to help understand, you know, in the 5 love languages, you try to analyze what's your love language. If I want to help my friend Charles Gross, I can help him the way I want to help him, where I can think, what's his love language? How does he show love? How does he receive love? And then my friend Betsy, how does she show love? How does she receive love? And then all of us individually, we can try to analyze that way to be helpful. But it takes no skill at all to look at someone and criticize them. And just to point out their flaws takes really no skill at all. But it is much harder to analyze ourselves. It's much harder to see ourselves. And this is the type of message that could be given before the Passover. But this can be given any time of the year as we analyze who we are. By the way, my wife sets a really good example of helping people. Let me give you an example of that. She is a researcher. She knows how to dig out material. Like if you have a health problem and she's your friend, she will dig out all the material. But I've got friends in the Church of God, when they dig out all that material, they will pound it down your throat week after week. And if you say you're not interested, that doesn't stop them at all. They're going to keep coming at you. And if you're one of those, I don't know who you are, but you're annoying. You're annoying other people. But my wife, like Linda White, Wes's first wife, my wife was really good friends with Linda. They were college roommates, really, really good friends. And when she had Lou Gehrig's disease, of course, my wife started digging in and became an expert, I'd say. Well, she certainly became well-schooled in Lou Gehrig's disease. But she approached Linda and said, I have this information, would you like it? And Linda said, no, thank you. And my wife backed off. That's my wife. So that's the way, hopefully you are that way too, that you have information you can pass on, information you can give, but you're not going to try to cram it down people's throat, whether it be health or whether it be religion. You know, they have information about how they view the 10 Commandments. Do you try to cram it down their throat, or do you back off and wait for opportunities to reflect light and reflect God's good way? And of course, that's the difference between fundamentalists who just try to change everybody and people who love people, have conviction and compassion as they help other people. But who are you? I'm going to look at 5 different ways you can analyze yourself of who you are. And I'm not asking you to analyze other people. I'm asking you to analyze yourself. I don't know your life. I know in any group this size, any group on the internet, and by the way, welcome to the group on the internet, there are people who are too hard on themselves, and there are people who are too easy on themselves. And that changes. Maybe 1 month you're too hard on yourself, and later on you become too easy on yourself. That's why the book of Deuteronomy says, when things are going good, don't forget the Lord. And that's the human nature. When things are going bad, we're in a trial, we pray, we fast. When things are going well, we don't pray as much, like the first song we sang today about praying. Did you pray today? Let's look at 5 areas. The first one I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. I'm not going to even quote any scriptures on the first one. But there's an expression that says you are what you eat. You are what you eat. And I would have you analyze, what are your eating habits? What do you eat? How balanced are your eating habits? Have you done any research on what things are better for you? Do you have any specific situations where you need to adjust your eating habits? You know, salt, whatever, sugar, whatever. Do you analyze all of that? I want you to analyze. I'm requesting as a friend that you analyze what you eat, because what you eat will show in part who you are. But it's the first one. Like I said, I'm not going to even spend time with it, but I at least wanted to mention it because I think they get more important as we go along. The second one I'd like to analyze is you are what you do. Look at James chapter 1. James chapter 1. You are what you do. Sometimes there are people who really don't know themselves. Actually, I have to say, too, for years I've become a student of analyzing who we are. This is something I really have a lot of interest in. And I will tell you, there's some sermons you remember for a long time. They asked Martin Luther one time why he wrote music. He wrote music because he said, if I give a good sermon, they may remember it a week or two and they'll forget it. But if I write a song, they might remember it for 1,000 years. Of course, Martin Luther has, and that's why the beauty of song, the beauty of special music, the beauty of your young people's thing where they use music to try to give messages. There's so much that can be said in music. And so we have to remember that. But memories are made by adrenaline. Science will show that memories are made by adrenaline. So whether or not you have a good memory or a bad memory, you had some adrenaline rush. So if people have bad memories where they thought a parent was abusive, the parent showed anger, or the parent made a decision, and the little child or the teenager had this adrenaline rush, and it created a memory. Likewise, a positive way, that's why you have such good memories of the feast and some of the God's holy days, God's feast days. Some of your travels, whether you go on a cruise or whether you take a vacation, whether you do golf outings, ski outings, so you have these good adrenaline rushes that produce a good memory. That's what it does. So long time ago, when I was a college student, a man who's long gone, was not a perfect man, you know him well, but I had high regard for the teaching of Ron Dart because he had a certain way of saying things. And years ago when I was a college student, he gave a sermon that obviously gave me an adrenaline rush that I not only remembered the subject, but I remembered who gave it. A lot of times, people will say they'll remember the subject, but they don't remember the speaker. It tickles me sometimes. I've had a lot of people say this to me, but I wasn't the one they were interested in. But some people come up and say, the best sermon I ever heard was at a CEM feast site when someone played the bagpipes. Well, I gave that sermon, but they remember the bagpipes because the bagpipes created the adrenaline rush. And I sit there thinking, well, they don't remember me, but at least they remember the message. That was good because that's all you care about, people be helped by the message. But Ron Dart actually gave a message that I remembered the speaker, not just the message, but the speaker. See, James 1, verses 22 through 26. Be you doers of the word and not hearers only. You deceive yourselves. And so I like to study about how we deceive ourselves, how we do that. Because I want to learn from that and I want to help others learn from that. And we see each other deceive ourselves all the time. We see ourselves be contradicting ourselves all the time. A lot of times people's political ideas don't match up. They'll make one statement and the next statement doesn't match up. But religiously, we do the same thing. We'll make a statement, but our next statement doesn't. And again, you just don't go with a club and club them to think, now how can I help them learn about, how can I help them see themselves? How can I be a benefit? How can I help edify? Because what we do is what matters. Because I know people who say, I don't have a temper. They will say, I don't have a temper. And then 2 minutes later, show their temper, display their temper. And they don't mean to lie. You know why we lie? We lie to ourselves. Once you lie to yourself, you can become a convincing liar to someone else. If you think you're kind and everyone else doesn't think you are, it's real easy for you to convince other people because you've convinced yourself that you're kind. You've deceived yourself. It's real easy we do it. We all have to fight it. We all have to work on this. But James said, be a doer, not just a hearer. If anyone's a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, he goes away and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, who is not a forgetful hearer, he's a doer of the work. That one will be blessed in what he does. So it's nice to have good intentions, but good intentions don't really cut it. It's really what we do. It's good intentions get us started, but we need to follow through with what we do. I like verse 26. If anyone among you thinks he's religious, but he doesn't bridle his tongue, he deceives his own heart. This man's religion is useless. You know, I talk to a lot of people about the test commandment. The test commandment. I think all 10 commandments are important. I don't put one over the other personally. And I don't think we all have the same test commandment. Some people like to think the fourth commandment is the test commandment. Well, for many people, the fourth commandment can be a test commandment. But what was David's test commandments? Well, how about adultery, number 7, and killing, number 6? He probably did number 4 pretty well. I would dare say, I doubt the fourth commandment is your test commandment in this audience right here. You've been keeping the Sabbath for years. I'll tell you a test commandment for all of us: the tongue. We as people are horrible. In the Church of God, we're not too good at it either. Because if we just let our tongue flap and fly, and we fool deceive our hearts thinking, I'm doing great, God's happy with me. Psst, 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 psst. God's happy with me, gossip, gossip, gossip. God's really pleased with me for what I'm doing, talk, 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 talk. The tongue is really a huge problem for all of mankind, me and you as well. So it's what we do. It's not really what we intend. It's really what we do. So I hope you'll take some time to analyze what you're doing to see who you are. The third one is you are what you think and feel. Matthew chapter 5. Now, if you remember the Sermon on the Mount, you'll say, oh, yeah, I get what he's saying. He's just telling me what Jesus said. Because the Sermon on the Mount says, if you luster after a woman, you've already committed the problem. Or in Matthew 5:21, if you're angry at your brother without a cause, you've already killed him. So it's not just what we do, it goes beyond that. It's what we think, and I like to use the word feel. Because a lot of people, yes, you can overdo feelings, and yes, you can have feelings can run you. It's a shame when you see people let their feelings run them. But on the other hand, there are people who don't think feelings are important. Jesus had feelings. And I love his prayer. He showed his feelings. When he prayed to his Father, he said, I'm sorrowful unto death. Whew. This is a heavy load. Part of me wishes it'd be all over. Whew. Like he wouldn't do it by his own hand, and none of you should. If you ever get too intense on strong feelings, go get some help. There are people who will help you. There are people who will love you. And of course, there are people, God will be there for you. But understand when you have feelings, but just manage those feelings with God's help and some of the great scriptures in the Bible. But we are what we feel. And we don't want to be consumed by our feelings. But he said here in Matthew 5:21, you've heard it was said, you shall not murder, and whosoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. And whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. The part is, again, our feelings then translate to bad actions. So I'm going to ask you not only to look at your actions, I'm going to encourage you to really analyze your feelings. God created you to have feelings. That's how we mourn. That's how we deal with loss. That's how we deal with loss of life. That's how we deal with loss of job. That's how we deal with rude people. That's how we deal with oppressive governments. So God created us with feelings, but he wants them to be an ally and an asset. And so I want you to analyze your feelings. And I hope you will learn and have been learning how to use those feelings and let those feelings be a blessing to you. The fourth one, you are what you love and hate. You are what you love and hate. We're right here in Matthew. Let's look at Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. You can think of people who have really good habits or really good, even really good hobbies. There's some people you just look at them and say, that's a fisherman. They love fishing. They spend time with their family, but their free time, they choose to go fishing. Some people like to fly airplanes. They're known for flying. You look at them and say, that guy flies. He may not have flown in 30 years, but the fact is he'll always be remembered for that because he likes to fly. Some people were very good basketball players and racquetball players. Your friend over there, Charles Gross, was really good at it. And so he'll always be known to many of us that way. And in fact, he'll probably be known to himself a little bit that way because he'll be like, oh, I wish I could do that again. I can't do that anymore. Because the memories never go away. But you're known by what you love. Every time I talk about TV things, I know turn some people off. But I love NCIS. So I'm kind of known as someone who loves NCIS. And when they say something that's not right, I don't want to endorse that, but I like it. And again, that dates me because that's an old show. I get it. I like John Wayne. By the way, for young people, he used to be an actor years ago. Because that's really dating me. But you're known by what you love. See, Matthew 6:21 says, For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And you'll be known by where you spend your money. If you spend your money on your wife, she'll know you love her. If you spend your money on 5 boats, she's going to know something too. She's going to recognize something too. And it's like wives, again, you'll be known how you spend your money, how you spend your time, not only just money, but how you spend your time. If you tell someone, I really like being around you, but you never go around them, they're going to be known by what you love. I want to turn to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 15. And while we like to focus on the positive of what we love, I have to remind you, we're also known by what we hate. Now, we can put it in kind of cozy terms and say, we hate the Yankees or we hate the Patriots. That's just fun. That's just fun. And then we can have fun with it. In fact, a lot of sports, when you're having fun, is not only the teams you like, but the teams you root against. That can be just fun if you like sports. But truly, deep down, we're known by what we hate. If you hate certain people, and maybe even keep it quiet. Obviously, we shouldn't let our tongue talk about the things we gossip about. But even in your heart and your relationship with God, God looks down at you and he knows what you hate. And he knows who you hate. And that's who you are. And I want to encourage you, brethren, please, in Hebrews 12, verse 15, he talks about, I'll read starting verse 12, leading up to verse 15. Therefore, strengthen the hands which hang down, strengthen the feeble knees. Make straight paths for your feet, so that what a lame may not be dislocated, but rather be healed. Verse 14, pursue peace with all people and holiness, without which no one will see the Lord. He said, look diligently, lest anyone fail or fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, and therefore many be defiled. Please, brethren, do not allow any roots of bitterness to consume your life. Let me tell you something else you probably know, but I want to remind you anyway. If you're bitter towards someone and you're consumed toward them, maybe even consumed with what you think they think about you, probably they're not even thinking about you. Probably they're thinking about high gas prices, how they're going to make the car payments, the house payments, maybe someone, their spouse they love, or if they're single, someone they want to get married to. Maybe they're interested in who's going to win the Super Bowl. Maybe they're interested in who's going to win Dancing with the Stars. And while you sit at home just consumed with them, thinking they probably think the same toward me that I think toward them, it's probably not true. They've moved past. And by the way, forgiveness, and this will be a subject later on for different people to cover. But you've heard, I'm not the first one to say it by any means, but forgiveness is more for the person who's doing the forgiving than it is for the person who's done the wrong. We need to forgive people for our own sakes, not so much because I'm going to forgive them because they need forgiveness. They've probably forgotten all about it. They've moved on. But you can't let anything in your life consume you to the point that that's who you are. And again, the whole purpose is who are you? You are who you love, and you are what you hate. The last one I'm going to talk about today is you are what you choose. I could turn from Deuteronomy 30, I won't, about God said, I'm set before you life and death. I set before you blessing and cursing. Choose life that you may live. Choose blessing that you will live. Let's go back to Matthew chapter 6, verses 22 and 23. While we consider what we eat, while we consider what we do, while we consider what we think and feel, as we consider what we love and hate, the fact is we're really going to be noted for what choices we're making. That's who we are. Matthew 6, verses 22 and 23. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that's in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? I know it's hard to make choices in life. Sometimes we think that the system's rigged against us. We think elections are rigged. We think the economy's rigged, that the rich are going to get this, and we can't, middle class can only do so much. Yeah, we can think all that we want, but I think we want to make sure we're making the best choices that are within our realm. I can't choose how people treat me. I can only choose how I respond. I can only choose my response. I can influence others, but I can't change them. I try not to change them. And I can make choices for me. You make choices for you. And so thereby you can choose the way of, make it simple. There's many different parables, many different ways of describing it. Here Jesus is saying, choose light. So that's one good simple way to do it. Do I choose the way of darkness, or do I choose the way of light? And there's many other ways it's described throughout the whole Bible, many great different ways to describe it. But one way is I want to choose light. I want to receive light. I want to be around people who project light, and I want to project light. And then you can determine who you hang around. We always tell our young people, be careful who you hang around, who you're choosing to be with, what you're choosing to do. And so again, I'm encouraging you today to choose light. One last section of scripture over in Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 12. There's a buzzer up here that says, end quickly, because Charles wants to eat potluck. No, there's no buzzer that says that. But he does want to eat potluck. Matthew 5, verses 3 through 12. Here's what I'd like to ask you to choose. I'd like to ask you to choose to be poor in spirit, because yours will be the kingdom of heaven. I'd like to ask you to mourn and help those who mourn, because then you will be comforted and you will help other people be comforted. Verse 5, I would ask you to choose to be meek, because you will inherit the earth. I would ask you to choose to hunger and thirst after righteousness, because you will be filled. You will be satisfied. I would ask you to please choose to be merciful, because you will get mercy in return. I ask you to please live a life that is pure in heart, because that's the way you'll see God. I'd like to ask you to be a peacemaker, because then you can be called the Son of God. If you're persecuted for righteousness' sake, I ask you to choose the right response so you can receive God's blessings, because you will be blessed if you follow God's example, Christ's example. You will be blessed. Verse 12, I ask you to rejoice and be exceedingly glad, because there's a reward for us, and we're not doing it for the reward. I think I gave a sermon here years ago talking about the 3 reasons we obey. One reason we obey is to receive benefits now. It's smart to obey, to receive blessings. A second reason we obey is to receive rewards at the resurrection, because he says, I will recompense you at the resurrection. But then we finally get to the third reason we obey, to glorify God. We're not in it for the reward now. We're not in it. We appreciate the rewards now. We appreciate the blessings now. We're not in it for the blessings at the resurrection. We'll appreciate that. But our Father's dealing with us. He has a relationship with us, and we want to glorify his way of life. We want to glorify his gospel, his message. We want to glorify his light, and that's why we obey. So, brethren, I hope you'll rejoice and be exceedingly glad. So again, you are what you eat. You are what you do. You are what you think and feel. You are what you love and what you hate. You are what you choose. But I ask you to consider, who are you?